U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions firing back at Chicago after the city filed a lawsuit against the Department of Justice over its policy to withhold federal grant money to sanctuary cities. Sessions says Chicago should adopt a tougher immigration policy as it battles with one of the highest murder rates in the country. Joining us now is Republican Congressman from Florida, Ron DeSantis. Sir, thank you for joining us. What's your take on this lawsuit? It's sort of amazing that they don't want to follow federal law, but they'd still like to have federal dollars.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, here's a jurisdiction that does not believe in complying with federal immigration law, and yet they want to have these law enforcement grants. And I think Attorney General Sessions is right to say, you guys got to get with the program, otherwise we're going to turn off the spigot. And the fact of the matter is, when you don't enforce federal immigration laws, you of course will have more crime in your jurisdiction, because if you enforce the laws, there'd be criminals that would be deported before they go on to commit crimes. But I think it also fosters a disrespect for the rule of law that's not conducive to having safe communities.
What do you think about the idea that they said it has a chilling effect on the whole immigrant community, that when there's crime going on, they won't come forward if they're being abused? You know, this is the very common argument they make all the time. They won't come forward to be witnesses in crimes that they've seen. They won't help the police, that it actually hurts police work.
Well, I don't think that needs to be the case. I mean, Melissa, if somebody is committing a crime and they get arrested and they get brought to the local jail and they get booked, checking their immigration status makes a lot of sense in that particular instance, and particularly if they're convicted of crimes and they're here illegally, you got to let ICE know so that those people can be removed from the country. But if you just have a run-of-the-mill person coming up to report a crime, you don't sit there and check their immigration status. It's just not usually the way it is. Yeah. So I understand why people say that, but I think in practice that's just not how this stuff works.
So one of the other arguments that's being made is that it's very hard on the law enforcement officers who are out there trying to do their job. Now they know that their mayors are, you know, they're in these liberal cities. They're not going to comply with this law. And so then that local law enforcement is the one who's punished and sort of doesn't get the money that they need for things when they're sort of caught in the middle of these two battles. How do you feel about that argument?
Well, look, I think it is unfair to the rank-and-file officers who are doing their job. But the question is, who is to blame for that? And I don't think you don't blame Jeff Sessions for simply enforcing law and order. I think you blame the political leadership in those cities for insisting on lawlessness. And so they're the ones that are to blame, not Jeff Sessions.
Miami, in your state, of course, is taking the opposite stance, giving up its sanctuary status. What is the dialogue like down there? What are people in Florida saying about all of this?
Well, look, I think the mayor looked at it and said, here, we don't want to be obstructing federal law. We want to continue to get the grant money and understand what we're asking, the federal government's asking local communities to do. Not to convert every police officer into an immigration agent, far from it. But if you have somebody going through your justice system and the person's here illegally and they get convicted of a crime, well, we have to deal with that reality and let ICE know so that those individuals can be processed and returned to their country of origin.
Yeah. Congressman DeSantis, thank you for joining us.